Hey, what's going on, y'all? I just thought I'd do a quick fight prediction and a preview of the Anthony Joshua and Dillian Whyte fight that's about to take place in the O2 Arena in London. Um, so I think it should take place about less than 2 hours, I believe. But so let me get this in real quickly here. Very interesting matchup between two prospects. Anthony Joshua going to the fight 14-0 with 14 KOs, ranked number 2 by the WBC. Dillian Whyte 16-0 with 13 KOs. I think he's ranked in the WBC as well, but I can't recall what ranking it is. I'll have to go back and check into it. But again, this is two heavyweight prospects from London. Good prospects. Highly anticipated fight. But what's oddly strange to me that this fight is being showcased on pay-per-view, which is Sky Sports box office, which is bullshit. You saw my one of my previous videos on that. But anyhow, let's talk about the matchup stylistically. Um, Anthony Joshua, very skillful fighter, much more coordinated with his punches. Great hand speed, great footwork, massive physique, which we all can see. Pretty good work rate. Dillian Whyte, very good jab, long reach. Just a tad slow on his feet. Not so good on hand coordination. It's not bad, but again, it's not that great. Um, but the thing about Dillian Whyte is that looking at his previous fights, he has a tendency of keeping his hands so low, man. I mean, especially that left hand. Okay. I just think that if he's going to win tonight against Joshua, he's going to have to really keep his defense much more tighter than what they have been in the previous fights. Because again, he's proved to have very low hands, so that makes him very susceptible to wide open shots. Um, but we all know that Whyte did beat Joshua in the amateurs. And since then they've had beef with each other, and I also took a look at their segment, "The Gloves Is Off," which is hosted by Johnny Nelson over the UK, which is very similar to HBO's Face Off with Max Kellerman. I'm sorry, and in that the Gloves Are Off interview segment between Joshua and Whyte. Dillian Whyte seemed like he really wanted to get into Anthony Joshua's head. And let me tell you why he wanted to do that. I think from a psychological standpoint, I think that he knows that he doesn't have the skills to beat Anthony Joshua. He knows that. He knows he lacks the skills right now, even though he beat him in the amateurs. But we all know that Anthony Joshua is a much more improved fighter than he was in the amateurs. I mean, take a look at his fights against Rafael Zambrano Love and against other tomato cans. Even though they're still early in their careers, he hasn't yet been proven either as Dillian Whyte. But also take a look at the fight against Kevin Johnson, who he knocked out in 2 rounds. And Kevin Johnson was not a pushover, though he never won a major title. But he was also one of those guys that you couldn't really get out of there. He's one of those guys you couldn't really knock out. I mean, in fact, Johnson never been knocked out before until to that point when he fought Joshua. Yeah, so so I believe that's where Whyte knows that there is a skill gap between him and Joshua, where Joshua has much more of an advantage on his skill set. So the only way to disrupt that was to get in his head, trash talk him, belittle him, just to get him off his game plan. Because if you could do that to a fighter that you know has much more superior skill set than you, all you have to do is get in his head, make him have a short fuse, throw him off his game, basically, make him lose some bit of confidence and focus. And I think that's what he tried to do to Anthony Joshua, because we all know that Anthony Joshua seems to have a short fuse. He seemed to be a bit hothead, and he easily get angry. So, and Whyte knows this, and he tried to really exploit that in that interview, in that segment, because it seemed like there was sometimes that Joshua really want to reach across that table and knock this guy in the head, because the way he spoke to him, the way he was belittling him would probably piss me off. I mean, it was just like a really, really form of low ball disrespect. But anyhow, if you want to look at this fight realistically, idealistically, I should say, I would say that obviously Joshua was going to win this fight. I think the betting odds the last time I checked was 12-1 in favor of Joshua. But there's some interesting note that needs to be pointed out here, that the referee for this fight is Howard John Foster. And we all know who this guy is. Howard John Foster was a guy who was assigned to the first Carl Froch and George Groves fight back in 2013. And he was a guy who made that controversial stoppage where Groves was clearly still in the fight, and then as soon as Froch got him in a little bit of trouble, he stopped the fight, and that obviously caused an uproar, and it caused it was major controversy to the point that I think that Howard John Foster was suspended for some time due to that stupid call. But again, it is to note that he is being assigned to referee this fight, and it's obvious to me that Eddie Hearn knows. It's just some opinion. Don't attack me for this, guys. I think Eddie Hearn knows that somehow, some way, that Anthony Joshua is going to lose this fight somehow. I don't think he will, but in a situation he may try to lose this fight. I guess he's instructing Howard John Foster to find a way to make sure that Joshua wins this fight, so that way Dillian Whyte doesn't have a chance to win it. That's just my opinion, because we saw that resulted into the George Groves and Carl Froch fight, where George Groves clearly had the upper hand over Froch. Clearly had the upper hand. Now, if that fight had went to the distance, maybe George Groves would have pulled it off. But again, the scorecards were kind of funky too before the stoppage, because there was two other judges who had the fight closer than what it looked. And obviously, I don't see how they could have done that, because Froch was clearly losing that fight before he got that gift stoppage, I should say, but from Foster. But anyhow, it should be a very interesting fight tonight, and I'm looking forward to it. So let me know what you think. Drop a comment, subscribe, share, sign it off. Peace.